don't let your current situation determine your future. So sometimes we think, oh man, I don't have this or I'm not doing enough with that. That's your that's where you are currently, but don't let that determine your outcome.
Welcome back to the Two Stubborn to Fail podcast. I'm your host, Darren Perkins, and we got a real special guest in the building today. He's a licensed therapist, a confidence expert, and one dope content creator, Jason Phillips. How you doing today, brother?
What's up, bro, man? Well, I'm excited because I know we linked up almost a year ago to the date. So I'm
Crazy.
excited to be able to, I know, right? Yeah, it's like a year ago and so a couple of days. So excited to have this conversation with you, man.
Absolutely. Content creation boot camp. It was the start of all of this. I don't remember if I don't think I officially launched it yet. I was in the
Mhm.
process. So it's good to connect with good people, and it's good to actually use those connections. Because how many events have people gone to and never cashed in on
Right.
it?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we
Yeah.
do a
So
lot. So to actually collab is good.
hmm hmm so let's just hop right into it. Where you from?
Originally from Detroit. So from Detroit, Michigan, born and raised. So what up, though, to all my people in the D. And then now I reside in North Carolina. So I've been here almost 7 years.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of describe how was it growing up for you?
Oh man, growing up was, I mean, in the inner city, Detroit is always something to do. There was always something going on. So in Detroit, fashion is huge. So that was always something, trying to make sure you got your gear tight, your crew is good. Um, Growing up was real fun for me. I went to one of the dopest high schools in Detroit, Cass Tech. So you may have heard of Cass Tech High, but that's where a lot of the greats come out of. And it really set the tone for my foundation as a person because with so many people in that school, there was like 3,000 of us.
Wow.
You want to be able to stand out in, amongst a huge crowd. So you have to have your own unique individual personality. And I was able to do that by not trying to, click up with these people or click up. I found my own circle, but even within my own circle, I was able to still be myself. So that was what I remember most from high school.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
are you a Lions fan?
I am not a Lions fan, man. I don't have a heart for it. I know
Yeah,
my people gonna bash me, but man, they probably got 10 wins over the past 4 years,
it's been
something like
rough.
that.
It's been rough. I
Yes,
know a
man.
Lions fan that's I think he's from Flint, and he lives
Okay.
here in Columbia now. And just to your point, it's been rough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm a Steelers fan.
Okay, okay. Sorry, I'm an Eagles fan,
Yeah,
so I know that was kind of a rough one.
yeah.
Um,
Y'all killing it this year.
it's been a good year. So, what would you say has been some of your biggest influences early? Like before you got into your professional career, your childhood, any influences
Sure.
there?
My grandparents, my grandmother stands out. She went back to school at 50 something, like mid
Hmm.
50s to earn her bachelor's degree. And that was always something that appealed to me, and now it means even more being a grown man myself. Like that's challenging to go back to school, kind of start a new life. So she was always a huge inspiration, and she's a social worker, or she was a social worker like myself. So to be able to follow in her footsteps and then take it up a notch is super inspiring. That's on a family side. Now, outside of family, I'm a huge Snoop Dogg fan, so I've always, just loved the music and then the persona, laid back personality, and also last influence I would say is Allen Iverson too.
Okay,
Just having that never quit attitude. So yeah, those would be my top influences.
that's dope. So social work, that's the route you went first as far as college.
Actually, psychology was first. So my
Okay.
bachelor's is in psychology. I didn't really get hip to social work until my senior year. So I was a McNair scholar, and in amongst the scholars, there were like maybe 15 of us, and let's say 8 or 9 of those McNair scholars were in the social work program as undergrads. And I always thought like, why? It's like so many people in social work. I'm doing psychology. It was me and one other guy in psychology. And I think he ended up switching to social work. So it didn't, I knew what social work was, but I didn't know the depth of social work and what all we could do until I found out about being a licensed clinical social worker. And that's what led me, being a therapist. So in my undergrad, I was in psychology, but then my master's degree, I went for a master's in social work. And it really opened my eyes as far as how much I could do with that clinical degree. And then now I just a few days ago received my acceptance letter for my doctorate of social work degree. So I'm going to start the doctoral journey in a couple of months.
Nice, nice. So we
Yeah,
actually
in social
we
work.
we share a major. So I'm a bio major. I'm sorry, not bio, psych major. I'm a psych
Okay.
major in undergrad. I didn't pursue anything after that, but I definitely, got that 4 year degree
Yeah.
right here at
Yeah.
USC. Well, it's only USC here. Everywhere else, it's the University of South Carolina. So that's cool. So, what was the process like? So after you graduate with your psych degree, what was that process
Mhm.
like to go further to like masters?
Man, that was a transition period for me. Like right then, because I had took a little break during my undergrad career.
Hmm.
So when I graduated with my bachelor's, I was like 20, 23, maybe 24, something like that. So when I went from my undergrad to master's, it was like I locked in as far as education wise, really made sure I was top of the on my A game in my program. I went to the University of Michigan, which is the number one school of social work in the country. So it was a really rigorous program, but just you learn so much. And from the professors, your colleagues, I built some really long lasting relationships. So the training that I received in that program was just priceless. And interning at the VA, working in substance abuse and mental health, it has really set my career up. And I'm so thankful that I had those opportunities.
Okay. So, all right. So at this point, we got our masters. What's the process of becoming a therapist? Like, what is that after the degrees?
Yeah. So it's a lot. You have to have X amount of hours. So for us, I believe it was 4,000 hours. It equated to roughly 2 years full time work.
Yeah.
So I started out working in hospice doing grief counseling. So
Ooh.
for 2 years, I was doing a lot of grief counseling, and I also worked part time in community mental health. So that process was grueling because I'm working with individuals who had lost a loved one. Typically, it was like a partner, a spouse, or a parent. Sometimes you may have someone who's lost a child.
Mhm.
And I remember vividly working with this population, and it was challenging at first because I couldn't relate to losing someone so close to me at that time. So I had to really tap into my supervisors and older clinicians for supervision. And because I wanted to make sure that I was providing the best services that I could. And I remember, sometimes thinking like, okay, am I doing enough? And it wasn't until I worked with this one young lady. I think she lost her, I think it was her husband, but I can't remember for sure. But we worked together for a few months, and she was an older white woman. So I'm like 25, 26 maybe. She's around 55. And after we started to work together, she was getting better. And at the end of our last session, she said, "I'm so glad I stuck with you because what I didn't tell you is I was robbed at gunpoint by a black male some years ago. And by working with you, it helped me to change just my perception of black men because of her trauma. So it
Right.
was like twofold. So I was just really glad that she shared that opportunity, or she shared her experience with me. Like, she didn't have to tell me all of that,
Right.
and that she still trusted me enough as a newer clinician to be able to guide her through her trauma.
That's
Even though
cool.
we didn't even work on the trauma, but we worked on the loss, but
Yeah.
subsequently that was healing for her too.
Man, that 2 years had to be draining for you, bro.
It
I
was, I
can only
mean,
imagine.
it was a lot, but you had to have the right support. Like, it was me and a couple of my colleagues from Michigan. We kept each other, like, we held each other down, made sure,
Mm,
like, okay, this is what we're doing, because we didn't get our degree just to take 5 or 6 years to earn those hours. And you know how it is, Darren. We know we're about the bag too. So,
mm-hmm.
we work, and then we take some time off, go play harder, then come right back at it, work. But it makes a difference when you're doing the work that you enjoy.
Right.
That's what makes it all worthwhile.
100%. You have to, I would say, enjoy the process because,
Mm-hmm.
as you and I know, it's not an overnight thing. So you got to
No.
enjoy, not necessarily all of it, but it has to be worth it. So,
Oh yeah.
so, did you have any tips for anybody who's looking to maybe get into, your profession? What are some day one things that they may need to know?
Figure out why you're getting into it. And I'm not discouraging you from getting into the profession, but figure out what's your reason why. Am I getting this because I have a huge passion to help people? Do I love the art of psychology or social work or the mental health field? What's the reason behind the reason that you're going into the field? Because it's a field where you need empathy. You need to be self aware. You need to have fortitude. You need to have emotional intelligence. And all of these things have to be supplemented by a great support system too, so you don't burn out. The average social worker, depending on the field, may only be in the field for 7 to 8 years before they say, you know what, I got to call it quits.
And I think
So
it's
know your
important.
reason why.
Know your reason why. Yeah, that's a good tip. I think
Yeah.
it's so important for you to know your reason why. But do you have an ideal client that you work with?
My I do. My ideal client right now is someone who's a high achieving individual, meaning they have that go mentality. They feel like they're not doing enough, even though they have the accolades. People are telling them, like, you're so dope, you're so great, but they're experiencing a lot of anxiety. And because of that, they still feel like they need to do more. So I help individuals overcome the imposter syndrome so that they can live confidently. So notice I'm describing you what that person presents with, not necessarily age, demographic, because that person could be a 20-year-old black male, but it could also be a 50-year-old black woman too.
Mm, okay, so
Mhm.
it's a wide range. I like that. Um,
Yeah.
What's the least favorite part of your day to day?
That's easy. The documentation, that's the
Ah,
easy part. Yeah. Outside of that, that's one part that stands out. But then another least favorite part is when you're working with someone who is on the fence about doing the work.
mm,
And at times you may want to do more than what you may want to go deeper than what they're ready for. And when you really want to see somebody win, that's challenging.
mm. Yeah, that's frustrating because you can't make them do it, and it's like
Mm-mm.
you see the end goal and you know they could
Yeah.
be right there close to a breakthrough, but if they don't take the steps, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they right. Yeah. So that breaks me, you know, especially with men. You know, I work with a lot of black men, and we're doing far better than we were a few years ago, seeking out mental health services, seeking out life coaching services. We're doing much better. But there's still a lot of times where I see men, particularly our younger brothers, who are on the fence about opening up to somebody. Like, but when we do, then we see the huge benefits in doing so. But we got to take that leap first.
Absolutely. In your opinion, what makes a good therapist?
Ooh, I just did a whole podcast episode myself on this one. And I put out 5 things that make a good therapist, and I'll run down a few of them.
Okay.
One is being self-aware. So you have to know who you are internally and do your own work. As therapists, we're going to hear so many stories. We're going to hear a lot about trauma, depression, anxiety, poor boundaries. We're going to hear a lot. And if you're not self-aware of what things can trigger you or what things you need to address with your own therapist, you can easily find yourself being triggered by what your clients are bringing into the session. So there's a clinical term called countertransference. So you have to be aware of those things so you don't have too much countertransference, because some of it is inevitable, but you want to make sure that the session is still for them, not you trying to get your own therapy. So that's one thing, being self-aware. Secondly, being open-minded. We don't need anybody to judge us. Like, if you're coming in for support, we don't need to be feeling like we're on the hot seat. It needs to be like super comfortable. I want to be able to lay back, talk about what I have going on, and not be judged in the process. And sometimes as therapists, we judge people. And I remember once talking to, like, I talked to, you know, some of my clients have had other therapists, and they say things like, yeah, I didn't feel comfortable with my therapist because they told me this or that, or they told me I wasn't living by the Bible standards. I just had that. Somebody told me that a couple of days ago. Like, and I'm like, man, they coming to you for help, but they're being re-traumatized. So those are a couple of things that stand out. Be self-aware, be open-minded.
Okay. I like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I've had a few conversations with mental health professionals, and the common thing, one thing they share, your least favorite thing, is the
Yeah.
paperwork. The paperwork must be a monster, because that's not the first time I've heard that. But
Yeah.
they all say therapists should also see therapists. What are your thoughts on that? And do you see anybody?
Yeah, I have a great therapist. He's also happens to be a black male, so that's pretty great in itself. And I do think that we we should at least have an experience of being on the other side. Because if you've never been to therapy, then you don't know what it's like when your therapist forgets something that you said, or when your therapist is starting to maybe repeat something again, or they give you an assignment that they've already given you, or even the questions, like how you structure your session. You pay attention to all of those things as a client, and you're like, oh, let me not do this. You know, I once had a therapist. I would never do this anyway, but she tried to sell me on like some multi-level marketing stuff like after the session. So I'm like, that's super unethical. But also on top of those things, just because we take in so much, so you need to have somebody that you can talk to too. Like, one of my clients said to me today, he said, man, I think y'all need therapy more than anybody, because we hear a lot.
That's a good point. So that brings me to my next question. Um, After dealing with all of that, like, how do you unpack?
Oh, I mean, I have a whole like routine sometimes. Like, one, definitely my physical fitness. That's important to me. Scheduling massages, scheduling haircuts, scheduling vacations, journaling. I got back into basketball, like watching sports more last year. So all of those things collectively helped me. So it's not like one particular thing. Well, the one thing I would say is exercise helps, but then also like putting things on the schedule. Because what you don't want to do is you look up after you done had 5, 6, 7 clients or whatever that day, and now you exhausted, and then all you have to look forward to is another day of a full schedule. You don't have anything planned out for you. So take that time out for yourself so that you can serve your people at the highest level. Don't nobody want to see me if I'm dragging, if they can tell I'm not taking care of myself. That's not providing the highest level of care.
I like that. I like that. Finding time for yourself. I think I like to say one of my guilty pleasures when it comes to like me time is
Yeah.
pedicures.
I just told my wife that yesterday. I said, I think we going on a guy's trip, but not with her, but and I said, I think I need a pedicure. She was
Hmm.
like, I think you're all right, but I think I need to though.
Hey, don't sleep on the pedicure, man. It's
Yeah.
it's one of those things that you didn't realize that you needed until after the fact. It's like, man, my feet
Right.
feel really good.
Yep. Yep.
Jason, this has been a dope episode so far, but we got to pay some bills. So we'll
Yeah.
be right back after a word from our sponsor. Real Dope Photography is more than just dope photos. It's a celebration of your brand, beauty, and confidence at any stage of your life. Our goal is to capture the greatest moments in your life and the world around you. Visit our website at realdopephotography.com. That's realdopephotography.com. And the real is spelled REEL. You know, like a reel of film. Make sure you set up your free consult today. Mention the Too Stubborn to Fail podcast on your booking form in the How Did You Hear About Us section, and you can receive a 20% discount. All right, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to the Too Stubborn to Fail podcast, where we tell stories about overcoming adversity. Today, we're having a great conversation with Jason Phillips. Just to continue the conversation, I want to get right into this podcast, the Peace and Prosperity podcast. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, sir. So we focus on all things related to mental health and self-development. So we've been going about a year now. I think I'm on I think the next one will be episode 40. So I've had some amazing guests on there talking about their journeys with mental health and relationships too. Relationships is always a hot topic. And then there's some episodes where I'm just, sharing, things that I've been through and also giving concrete tips so you can overcome self-doubt and confidence for yourself. So that's, me being a confidence expert, a lot of the episodes are going to be based on how do you manage imposter syndrome? How do you maintain your own peace? How do you have healthy relationships?
Okay, I like that. And of course, I'm already subscribed. I can't wait to get on
Appreciate
there
it.
myself.
Yeah, we gotta have you on there, bro. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So, I want to touch on a confidence expert. Could you describe what that is?
Yeah, so I initially started off working a lot with trauma and anxiety,
Mhm.
and those are my specialties on the clinical side. And I found that once people were able to really manage their anxiety, they start to have a lot more confidence. And my clients, we were working on just building more and more confidence. And over the course of my career, I've worked with a lot of high achieving individuals, whether they're in their profession or in their education. And when I started to think about what's my specialty, I looked at what everybody was coming to me for and what I was helping them with. And that was building up their confidence. And I think that's something across the board. We've all had issues at one point or time with confidence. So to be able to do it, one, I'm passionate about it because I've been there before too, where I lacked confidence in a certain area. And then more importantly, being able to help somebody go from not being confident to being able to, rock a stage or speak in front of hundreds of people or just show up and live out their actual passion, even if they're a solopreneur. That's what took me to be a confidence expert.
I think that's an important thing that you're doing because confidence is so necessary. It's like you can't do anything really well until you believe that you can do it well. And it could be the
Mm-hmm.
simplest of things, but if you're not confident in it, it's not going to be the same output.
Nope, nope. Like even like with my podcast, and you have to do things over time. So
Mm-hmm.
we got to remember, accomplishments build confidence, kind of like the ABC method. And when I first started out podcasting, as you know, it was rough. Like I didn't know what I was doing. Did I even have? I think I had a mic. I'm sure I did have a mic, but there over time, I became more and more confident as I kept doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And having guests on and doing solo episodes. Like my first episodes are really short and sweet. And that was because I'm like, I don't know how to do an hour episode, especially solo. Like, what am I going to talk about for an hour? But now, as my confidence has grown in that area, I can do that. I'm a speaker, speaking on stages, doing virtual conferences, all those things over time. My confidence, it just grows and grows and grows the more we do things.
Bro, when you talk about those first episodes, oh my gosh, it was rough, man. It was. I was nervous. The camera
Yeah.
does something to you, like nobody else in the room, but you put that camera on,
Mm-hmm.
and the sweat, and it was rough,
Yeah,
man.
the sweat. Yep.
It's
Yeah.
and we're similar in that we kind of started around the same time because this will be
Mm-hmm.
episode 34, so we're right
Okay.
around
Yep.
the same. That's
Yeah.
cool, but yeah, man, just putting in the reps. And now that I'm over 30 episodes, it's a level of confidence that I wouldn't have gotten from anything else. Like I don't
Exactly.
care how many um, podcast groups you in, how many videos you watch, you got to put the
Yeah.
reps in. That's the only
You got to
thing that's
do
going
it.
to get you better.
Got to do it.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
now we both stand here as content creators. Well, sit here as content
Yeah.
creators, creating some dope content. Um, but
Yeah,
to
man.
just,
I love what
touch,
you're doing too.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I want to actually touch on how does it feel to have your own platform to kind of create and do what you want to do.
Man, it feels amazing because I can control the narrative. I can control what I put out. I can control what I'm putting on. Like, I'll take my podcast, for instance. I know the conversations that I want to have on there. And I've even had one or two conversations where I was like, you know what, I'm not putting that out. And it was, either it wasn't good content or I didn't like where the conversation was going, but I have the ability to say that's not coming out. And this is where I want to focus on. And that makes a huge difference because now I don't just have a podcast, but the podcast has standards. It has a level of expertise. It has a focus. And the same with my social media platforms. I know what I want on my pages, my LinkedIn. And to be able to control that is different because before I had my podcast, I had been on, I've been a guest on at least 30, maybe more 40 podcasts, but it's very much so different when you have your own. Very much so. A lot more
Absolutely.
work. A lot more work.
And the pressure is off when you're a guest. All you
Yeah,
got to
all
do is
I
show
got,
up.
you show up and answer questions.
Absolutely. So, as a content creator, and you've been doing your thing, I thoroughly enjoy your content, specifically on Instagram, just to see where it has come, how it's grown over the past year.
Mhm.
I really enjoy your content. But do you have any tips for anybody who's looking to get into the content creation game?
Yeah, thank you, man. One, I appreciate it. It's fun. I will say the one tip that stands out is know. I keep going back to your why, but like know what you're targeting because what I found is that people they can receive the information in a number of ways. They can receive it, from an auditory standpoint, from a visual standpoint, and from a written standpoint. And I would say figure out what do you like to do, what can you keep up with, and then where's the focus. And you can really, like, when you got that sweet spot of being able to educate and entertain, the edutainment, you're good. But also just show up and be yourself, because if you are yourself consistently over and over and over and over again, your audience is going to find you.
I 100% agree. You're right. And another thing, consistency, man. Once you find that
Yeah,
sweet spot, you gotta pump out that content
pump
and
it out. Yeah.
make it. It's got to be a part of your routine to the point
Hmm.
where you feel bad if you don't post. You're like, oh man, I didn't post today.
Yeah, you talking to me. I didn't post today. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I try to do it every day. Yep.
Yeah, that consistency, it'll get you. Um, so I know we talked about some of your influences earlier on, but do you have any mentors, anybody who provides guidance for you now?
Oh yeah, definitely. I have some, like, that I know personally, that are not like from social media or internet, but people I kind of connected with way before Instagram and Facebook. People who I check in with to make sure I'm on the right path for myself. Uh, and a lot of them I gain a lot of wisdom from, and I can kind of see, okay, I love what you're doing in this lane, and I would like to get some of that for myself. And then there's the people who I don't know on a personal level, like David Shands, or who else stands out to me? Uh, Dr. Tart, he's another great therapist. But these are some of the people who I really love what they're doing with their platforms, and their consistency, their integrity about it.
I like that. Um,
Hmm.
so what I want to do is, like, I've asked you a bunch of questions about your profession. I've also asked you a bunch of questions about content creation, but I kind of want to merge the two.
Hmm.
Does your content creation play any role in your mental health?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like when you see me creating content now, I'm trying to make it as fun as possible for the most part, right?
Hmm.
Like I'm trying to make it like not work, because the work that we do on a daily is heavy, particularly depending on what you have, what you're working on in your session. So I don't want to be heavy on social media too. And even on my podcast, I don't want this to be another thing where it's like, whoo, I need to debrief. I want my content to be a breath of fresh air. So if I'm not putting out that type of content, then I sometimes, I take a break and focus on me so that I can come back with the best content that's going to be a breath of fresh air, but still have a message behind it.
I like that. I like that.
Hmm.
Jason, this conversation just keeps getting better, man. We got to pay some more bills. And then another thing is when we come back, we'll have the too stubborn to fail moment. So basically, that's a moment where you had to overcome adversity that sticks out to you the most. Because I know it's a few, but what is that moment for you? And then we'll be right back with the too stubborn to fail moment right after these advertisements. Built on a passion and love for art, All Things Design is here to create spaces you will love and custom designs and memories that will last a lifetime. All Things Design specializes in event design, interior design, corporate design, custom design projects, and home closet organization. And that's just to name a few. Communication is key. We're here for whatever you need. We'll help you solidify your vision and keep in constant contact until your dream is realized. All Things Design, a step above the rest. Be sure to book at allthingsdesign.org. All right, let's get back to this show. Welcome back to the Too Stubborn of a podcast, where we tell stories about overcoming adversity. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Today we have Jason Phillips in the building, just to continue the conversation. Jason, what drives you?
Ooh, I think my personality, my my desire to be consistent. Like that keeps me going. Like I want to make sure I'm the type to set a goal and I'm reaching that goal kind of no matter what by any means necessary. So knowing that about me, that keeps me going. So when I commit to something, like when I for real commit, it's go time.
Awesome, awesome. What I like to wrap up the interviews with is a too stubborn to fail moment. So basically, a moment that you've had to overcome adversity that sticks out to you the most. What's that moment for you, Jason?
Great question. I think when I had to overcome adversity, I would probably say loss. So loss stands out for me, like losing my grandmother in 2017, and then my mom in 2019.
Hmm.
That was a tough period, and I had other losses in between there. So going through those losses really showed me a lot, about what's important, and also having a purpose. So having to overcome those, particularly like when my mom passed, I was just starting my entrepreneur journey. So like things were just kicking off. I had been on some really dope podcasts and done some really great collaborations. So it was almost like a sink or swim moment. It's like, okay, are you gonna stop or and just kind of like say, you know what, maybe not now, or do you push through? So I had a good therapist at the time, helped me work through some things, and we kept it moving.
Man, that's dope. First, I'm sorry for your loss, and I appreciate you sharing that moment with me today. Um, where can the people find you, Jason?
I love to hang out on Instagram, so they can find me on Instagram at J Phillips MSW, and they can visit my website jasonlphillips.com. And then lastly, my podcast, which is Peace and Prosperity Podcast.
And then where is that located? Where can they
A good
find the
question.
podcast?
Yeah, that's on all audio platforms. So Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, and soon to be in the next couple of weeks we'll be on YouTube. So yep, I'll be right there with you, bro.
Like I said, just let me know and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
If you need something in person, we in the Carolinas. Just let
Yeah,
me
we in
know.
the Carolinas. We not too far.
All right.
Yep.
Well, Jason, before we get out of here, do you have any closing remarks, any words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with tonight?
I will say this: don't let your current situation determine your future. So sometimes we think, oh man, I don't have this or I'm not doing enough with that. That's your that's where you are currently, but don't let that determine your outcome.
Hey, I couldn't have said it better myself. I appreciate you. This has been
Yes.
another amazing conversation of the Too Stubborn to Fail podcast. Today we had a licensed therapist in the building, Jason Phillips. So go ahead and follow him, support Peace and Prosperity podcast, soon to be YouTube channel. All of it's coming. So just like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Darren Perkins, and we are Too Stubborn to Fail.